Hello, Tech fans, and welcome into episode 169 of the Tech Sideline podcast, originally high-tech studios in the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. What a busy show we have planned for you today. The first show in March coming up on today's show. Number 16, Virginia Tech men's basketball throttled Wake Forest over the weekend, set an ACC program record in a 38-point win, plus an ACC championship for Virginia Tech's men's indoor track and field team. Plus, Virginia Tech wrestling in action on Sunday at the ACC Championships. They take second. We take a look at Corbin Myers, who's the most outstanding wrestler from the tournament. And now, number 16, Virginia Tech baseball picks up one of the biggest series wins in the John Sheff era. All that and more coming up on episode 169 of the Tech Sideline podcast that gets started right now. Whether you are watching live or archived on YouTube, listening on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcast, or as we discovered last podcast, a lot of people like to listen on Stitcher. We're so glad you could join us today as we record on Monday morning, March the 1st. Our crew, as always, to my left, we have our managing editor here at Tech Sideline, Chris Coleman. Across the way, we have our founder and general manager. I used to call him the head honcho. I want to kind of bring that back. The head honcho, Will Stewart. Right. Behind the scenes, the best podcast producer in the land. He is Malcolm Stewart, and I'm your podcast host, Evan Hughes. It's so great to have you with us. Two quick things. If you're watching on YouTube, live or archived, please hit the like with the thumbs up button and subscribe. It greatly helps us.
Right now. Thank you.
And if you have a question for Will or Chris, go ahead and drop them in the chat on YouTube Live. It could be about any sport, any question. We will get to them at the end of the show.
Also, the other thing I want to encourage you to do is comment on the video. You know, even if it's just say good show, bad show, ask a question, whatever, because that's what gets YouTube videos a lot of traction is a lot of comments, not just likes and subscriptions. So appreciate that.
Tech Sideline Podcast is presented by Anytime Fitness. Each new member gets a free fitness consultation, and a program is designed. Now through your first billing period, sign up for $1 in your first billing period. Call 540-951-1340. That number again, 540-951-1340. Ask for Tyler and tell him that Tech Sideline sent you. The Tech Sideline podcast is also presented by Campus Emporium and the Southeast Regional Training Center. Head over to southeastrtc.com to find out how you can get involved and support Virginia Tech wrestling today. And we'll get to wrestling a little bit later because there were some highlights to talk about in the 2021 ACC Championships. But gentlemen, we turn the page from February to March.
Finally.
It is here. One of the best months of the year. And knock on wood here, it's going to be an even sweeter March because the long-anticipated return of the NCAA tournament should be this month for the first time in 2 years. I was playing the NCAA tournament theme song from CBS this morning on the way over just because it's an exciting time.
CBS knows their music for their sporting events, man. So their college football music, their intro to their college football games, that hasn't changed since at least the early 90s.
The early 90s, right.
And their NCAA tournament music obviously never needs to change. So if there's anything CBS does right.
The master songs have always been the same for years.
So if there's anything CBS does right, it's their intro music.
So I will say this about the NCAA tournament. I want to get this out of the way. So I was up past midnight last night and everybody started, tweeting, it's March. And that included a highlight video of a bunch of buzzer beaters from the tournament. And the very last one was Villanova, North Carolina.
Such a good one.
Lost. I forgot the guy's name that made the game winner. Do you guys remember?
Chris Jenkins, pass from Ryan Archidiacono.
Yeah. So Jenkins hits the shot, and it's just a great moment in NCAA tournament history. And like within a second or two, they start setting off all the streamers. Mm-hmm. Bang, 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 really loud. And to this day, I know this might sound like a weird thing to say, but to this day, when that shot went in, And then they started firing off those streamers. I swear I didn't know what was going on. I thought somebody was shooting up the Coliseum. I was confused. It was so loud, and it was actually kind of scary. And I think of that every time I see that highlight now with the audio. It's such a perfect, the way it was presented was perfect when they came down and you said Diacono had the ball?
No, he passed it to Jenkins. He kind of like set
and
a
he
screen
passed
in a
to
way
Jenkins,
over,
and was it Clark Kellogg doing the
well,
color
it
analysis?
was Nance. It was not Kellogg. It's who's the former Piston player? Grant Hill, right? And,
I do not recall.
And Onions, Bill Raftery.
But it's just boom, 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 and he called it. I think even before Diacono even passed it to him.
We had the
right
best
as
call too. He
passed.
said for the championship.
Yeah,
The ball's in the air.
it was all perfect, and then it gets ruined by bang, bang. What the heck is happening? Is somebody blowing the place up? Maybe it's just me.
Yeah,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I had to get that off
I think
my
it
chest.
might
National
just be you.
Championship game 2017.
Oh, I mean, I know the game.
Oh.
yeah, I know the shot. I know the play.
go back
Well,
and
and
watch
keep
it.
in mind, what made that so great was that Marcus Page came down and in the air threw up a three
Yes.
ball that tied it with like 3 seconds left. So,
That game was awesome.
anyways,
Well,
and,
you know what made it really good is the fact that they did it against North Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
Carolina.
what really
and,
made
and
it
Chris,
good.
I guess March is more exciting when Virginia Tech is a projected 6th seed in the latest bracketology from Joe Lenardi, and they look to be safely in the tournament if it started today.
I would say if you're a 6th seed and if you're projected as a 6th seed and you've got 2 regular season games left, then you're pretty much a lock. No, we sit here and try to look at what Virginia Tech has done, in a bubble, but so much of it is, what have other teams done too, and it's harder to keep up with this year because this program's getting shut down, that program's getting shut down. What is 14 wins this year? How does that compare to past seasons?
Right.
Like, what is 14-8? What is that in a normal year? 22-10?
12,
I don't know.
22 and 12.
Something like that. You have to compare things like that, and the fact that other teams like Virginia Tech haven't played complete schedules. Some teams have played more than others. So it's all kind of a guessing game at this point. But barring an absolute disaster, it just seems like it's a lock at this point.
Yeah, I just think that we're also skittish because, I recently watched a rebroadcast of the, I think it was the 2011 win over Duke, when Duke was number 1 in the country.
You're going dancing, baby.
And I actually, when I watch those vintage games, I speed up through a lot of them, but I actually sat one night, watched the entire first half with all the commentary, and the next night watched the entire second half with all the commentary. And if you go back and watch, we all know now that Virginia Tech didn't make the tournament, but if you go back and watch it, it's stunning that they didn't make the tournament because I think they were projected as like it may be a 9 or a 10 seed or something like that, and then they beat number 1 Duke, and you're like, oh, we're in. And Dick Vitale, never mind. Dick Vitale was right. Virginia Tech should have been in. So I think we're all just really skittish from a long history of living on the bubble and not believing it till it happens.
Well, it's no RPI anymore. We need to get over that.
Yeah.
The net is done completely differently. By the way, I'll be writing a completely different article this week about the net because some of the stuff I put in last week's article turned out to be incorrect. They changed some rules over the summer that I didn't know about. But regardless of that, the whole strength of scheduling thing that was so huge in the RPI, that's not what the net's all about. The net's all about efficiency for the most part.
Well, we'll talk about Virginia Tech's net ranking in a little bit. We'll also look at where Virginia Tech men's basketball might be seated at the ACC tournament. Plus, coming up on episode 169 of the Tech Sideline podcast, another ACC championship like clockwork for Virginia Tech's men's track and field indoor team. We will talk about them. Virginia Tech wrestling, Virginia Tech baseball, the big weekend, women's basketball. They've got the ACC tournament coming up this week. Virginia Tech football signed new players last week. We'll talk about softball, lacrosse, men's soccer, your questions, all that and more coming up. Episode 169 of the Tech Sideline podcast. But we lead off with currently, as we record on Monday morning, the 16th ranked team in the country. That's Virginia Tech men's basketball. Coming off of a double-digit home loss to Georgia Tech on Tuesday, their first game in 17 days after the COVID pause. The Hokies, Will, is it fair to say, beat the brakes off of Wake Forest? I like to try and be fair, but I feel like that is a beat the brakes off of Wake Forest in a 38-point home win inside of Castle Coliseum. It is the biggest margin of victory for Virginia Tech in an ACC game since they joined the conference in 2004. Keve Aluma buried a career high 5 threes in the win. He was 5 of 5 from beyond the arc.
What? I thought he was only like 3 of 3, maybe. So eventually wound up making 5.
He made 5.
Clearly, I lost my concentration.
It was
game.
he made 4 against Pittsburgh earlier in the year, but he went 5 of 5 from deep.
5 of 5. That's insane.
And listen, we could go through this box score because it was just, I mean, everybody was contributing. But Chris, I think it's fair to say the Hokies are back in full swing after the Georgia Tech loss. Fair to say?
Yeah. They sounded lethargic against Georgia Tech, I'll say, because I didn't actually get to watch the game at home. But they seemed really, really fresh against Wake Forest. Now, maybe that 17-day layoff, maybe it hurts you the first game, but maybe after that, once you get back in the groove, maybe you've got more energy because you weren't playing or practicing.
You got to pause,
Who knows? That would be an interesting off-season study. So I think Tech played really, 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 really well, and I think Wake Forest is just
a lot of reallys.
Horrible.
Yeah,
it's. I mean, Keve Aluma went 5 for 5, and it seemed like there was nobody within 5 yards of him every time he touched the ball out there.
Yeah. Scored 23 points in 20 minutes.
He can make those, right? I mean, I could actually hear Steve Forbes on TV, one of the wonders of an empty arena in the COVID era. You could hear the coaches yelling and hear what they're saying. And Mike Young's not a yeller, so you rarely hear him. But Steve Forbes can be a yeller, and you could hear him clearly on the broadcast the other day. Not particularly pleased, and I don't blame him. Wake, they seemed like they were improving a little bit earlier in ACC play, but now, oh man, they just look completely lost. It's so odd to me. I guess when I was a kid, when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, that's probably when you're maybe around your most impressionable age to a certain extent.
Yeah, when you're first discovering sports and first starting to watch.
When I first really, really started watching it and I could really grasp everything that I was watching is when they had Tim Duncan and Randolph Childress. And so to me, like, at that point in time, I mean, I viewed ACC basketball as Duke, Carolina, and Wake Forest. Like, they were all three the same to me. Yeah. So it's been odd to watch their collapse. Not odd, but I just think they've done some bad hiring. I think, obviously Odom was a fantastic coach for him, and then Prosser was a good coach. But when Prosser passed away, they were not able to adequately replace him. Obviously, Dino Gaudio became their head coach by default because Prosser died in like a July, so the assistant gets promoted, and then they replaced.
Was Danny Manning next after Dino Gaudio?
No, it was that guy for 2 years who was best friends with the athletic director. Remember, he was the Colorado coach, and the athletic director just hired.
That was a disaster.
He just hired his golfing buddy, Bezdelic.
Bezdelic,
yeah, that was it. He was only there for like 2 years.
Was that a Ron Wellman hire?
I think so.
Jeff Bezdelic.
Yeah. They were golf buddies, literally. Oh. And so that ran him into the ground. And then Manning's one of those guys. It's never your great players usually that become great coaches. It's always your averaged bad players.
Well, that's why I acted surprised the other day when I found out who Michigan's coach is.
Right.
Juwan Howard.
Juwan Howard.
That doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
By the way, so it went Odom, 89, 2001. Skip Prosser, 01, 07. Dino Gaudio, 07 to 10. Jeff, however you said his last. Bezdelic, 2010 to 2014. He actually
didn't last that long? 4 years?
He was most recently served as the associate head coach for the New Orleans Pelicans of the NBA, by the way. And then Danny Manning from 2014 to 2020.
Yeah, so I Malcolm Delaney's senior year, I went down. I think it was his senior year. I went down with my buddy Richie Davis, and we watched Tech play at Wake Forest. And the attendance, Wake Forest has a big coliseum. It's something like 17,000 seats or more. And the attendance way back then that night was positively COVID-like. There were about 3,000 or 4,000 people there.
Yeah,
so it's a big place, and they have at times had a good history.
They've wrecked their program.
Yeah.
Not only did they hire 2 bad coaches in a row, they stuck with him after it was clear, for
Yeah.
at least a year or two, after it was clear that they were in over their heads.
Yeah.
And then they didn't fire Manning until like May. That was a Seth Greenberg fire.
I remember that.
Right,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So Forbes has his work cut out for him. Like I say all that, and I'm not judging Forbes at all. He hasn't been there long enough to know.
Yeah.
But that's it's all about the hires, man. I think.
You didn't have to watch the game long on Saturday to know that Tyrese Radford certainly had an impact on the game in his first week back with Virginia Tech. He led, tied with Naheem Aline for the most minutes in the win against Wake Forest, which, by the way, didn't see the final score, 84-46. Radford, 15 points, 6 rebounds, 3 boards, and it's the first time in his career that Tyrese Radford has made multiple 3-pointers.
Congratulations, Wake Forest. All right, so it's the biggest margin of victory for Virginia Tech in an ACC game ever, beating our old high of 29 against Wake Forest.
In 2011.
So it's the first game ever that Tyrese Radford has hit more than 1 3-pointer. Keve
Keve
Aluma
Aluma
takes
makes
a career high 5 for 5. Like how many bad defensive records can Wake Forest break in one game?
So the Tyrese Radford thing is interesting because against Georgia Tech, he was I've repeatedly used the word invisible. He was invisible against Georgia Tech until there were about 7 or 8 minutes left to go in the second half. He had at that point 2 points, and he scored 9 points in the last 7 or 8 minutes of that game, and then scored how many in this one?
15.
So that's 24 points in the last 27 minutes he's been on the floor. So yes, he's getting his game back, it appears, and that's huge because a guy that we haven't talked about that hasn't recovered yet from the COVID pause is Hunter Couture.
Yeah,
Hunter did not shoot well the other day. He played better, but you can tell
he still had 3 blocks and 2 steals or vice versa. Or something like
so
that.
his floor game is good, but he's not hitting the shots.
It's clear. Well, maybe it's not clear, but we know some players miss practice time, a good chunk of practice time. And
yes, you are speculating.
And if I just had to guess, I would say that he was probably one of them. Yeah.
Okay.
He played 25 minutes on Saturday against Wake, did not score. However, as Chris mentioned, 3 blocks, 2 steals, 2 assists, 2 rebounds. So, I mean, he found ways to contribute.
Did he turn it over at all? Because he had a turnover problem against Georgia Tech.
He had 1 turnover.
Okay, not
Did
bad.
he draw any charges?
I don't know. I don't think
See,
that was the only thing that was missing.
That is the key indicator that he has not yet recovered
or a
from the COVID
3.
layoff.
This was the first. He had made a 3 in at least 9 straight games, and then that streak was snapped on Saturday.
No, so there's something Wake did right. They can hang their hats on that.
They kept Hunter Couture.
and
Hunter Couture didn't make a 3, so we didn't lose by 40. Moral victory.
Hey, listen, we can break down this game 84-46. Listen, everybody played well in this one. I kind of want to take it, though, big picture here for a moment. Also want to point out David Kassan, 20 minutes played against Wake Forest.
He's had 2 really good games against Wake Forest. So that
8 points, 5 rebounds. I'll tell you what, it's interesting. Let's talk about the freshmen real quick for a moment, right? Because the 2 headline names in this class were Joe Bamaseal, which we'll talk about in a moment, folks, because that dunk was insane, and Darius Maddox, who has not played much this year. But David Kassan out of the Netherlands, a 3-star recruit, I mean, he has been the biggest contributor of the 3 this year. I mean, getting 20 minutes in an ACC game, it's pretty big work there for the freshman.
Yeah, and when I look at him, Tech has brought in big guys, Cordell Pimsel. I'm really impressed with Justin Mutz. I think physically, Gasson is similar to Mutz. If you give Gasson a few years in the weight room,
except he's taller.
So Mutz is 6'7", is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Gasson is 6'9". So
Gasson's going to be a 6'9", 235, 240 pounds, a really good athlete.
I think once he gets some muscle on him and starts, it's funny. He's very productive, but to me, he looks like he's not quite confident in himself yet. And that's really good when you see a guy that's productive that you can tell is still trying to figure things out. So I think he's got a bright future if he stays on track. And I think Mike Young develops players so well. I think it all looks promising where Gasson's concerned.
Yeah, definitely. And those international kids like him, he grew up in the Netherlands. He didn't pay any attention to American college basketball. He's watching soccer or something like that, right? So, when you recruit guys like that, they don't understand how rankings are done. He probably didn't even know what his ranking was. So, he doesn't know that he was supposed to be not as good as the other freshmen in the class. Like, I remember something Seth Greenberg always said about Czech Chikite. Like, Czech Chikite was, I believe, from Mali, and Greenberg said something like, when we recruited him, like, oh, he thought we were so big time. Like, he didn't pay attention to American college basketball. He was just happy to be recruited by an American college basketball team. He thinks we're Duke, is what Seth Greenberg said. He said he thinks we're Duke, right? Basically. Wow. So, yeah, those guys, they just don't pay that much attention if you're from overseas like that. So maybe he looks up his ranking, maybe he doesn't, but I don't think he probably did not have a grasp that he was not supposed to be playing this much.
Having an impact as a freshman, yeah.
Well, Joe Bamisiel, he earlier in the year did not get a lot of minutes. He did play 15 minutes in the win against Wake Forest. 7 points, 2 rebounds, was 3 of 7 from the field, but that dunk to end the first half. I mean, it took off from the ACC stripe and flushed it down. You can just see the potential. We do like the Rosebud Thorn, which we won't do today, but gosh, he is a bud, Will, right? Yeah. I mean, he could blossom into something great.
So if you have not seen the Tech Talk Live notes from last Thursday, we ran them on Friday. Bamisiel was on Tech Talk Live last Thursday, and just go read the Tech Talk Live notes on TSL. He's just a very mature, interesting guy.
Deep thinking dude.
Yeah.
Real deep thinking guy.
And I don't think it's deep thinking in a bad way. I think that he knows who he is and where he is right now.
He practices the art of meditation. And when I say that, I don't mean like he just sits around and thinks about things all day. Like, I mean, he's actually knows how to do it. He's read the books. There are strategies to it, I guess. Techniques is the better way. And he knows all that. It's something about you take 500 breaths 500 times and then go up to 750 breaths 750 times. So like he has a life goal to kind of do that. He's done 500 breaths 500 times. And is he working on 750 times? Something like that. Yeah.
And then he's going to do 1,000 breaths 1,000 times.
Right.
Amazing.
That's life's work.
Right. So when people talk about, he's transferring or he's not transferring, all you're doing is guessing, and you're guessing based on what normal 18-year-olds think about, and he is not a normal 18-year-old. Not at all, and I mean that in a good way.
It's funny because he threw up one of the ugliest three-pointers I've seen the other day. Just flat-footed, just chucked it at the basket early in the shot clock.
Well, everything was going in at that point. So,
everything was going in. He's like, well, I'll just throw this thing up. And then later he took a three-pointer that looked a little better and went in.
Yep.
And so I just think as he gets older, you'll see more consistency. And again, it gets back to Mike Young and his staff so far. They look like they really know how to develop players. Just look at Keve Aluma. Mm-hmm. Although Mike will, and they talked about this on the game broadcast the other day, Mike will say, I never saw the offense coming. I knew Keve could be a good rebounder and a good defender, but I had no clue he would be scoring this many points.
Yep.
So,
speaking of the game broadcast, Will pointed out on Twitter, shouting out Radford Bobcats on the air, and pictures of Mike Young. Go at Will Stewart TSL and see the pictures that he put on Twitter.
So that was hilarious. So I took a picture of that screen and I texted it to my buddies, the Davises. There are 3 Davis boys that Richie's my age and Bev and Bob are twins. They're a year younger. So they all went to high school with Mike Young. Richie was 2 years younger than Mike Young. So when Richie and I were sophomores in high school, Mike was a senior. And another friend of ours, Phil Williams, same grade as me. Phil played as a sophomore on a state semifinal team where Mike was a senior. So of course the reason I say all that is I'm looking in the backgrounds of those 3 pictures that they showed, trying to see if I see other guys that I know. So that was just very cool.
That was really a tip of the cap to the ACC Network team putting that on the broadcast. Listen, we're in the final week of the regular season. It is March, so here we go, folks. Postseason play is just around the corner. Hokies have 2 big ones this week to close out the season, but I think the headline going into this week and moving forward is, what's the status of Jalen Cone, who, of course, was injured in the February 6th game against March. So it's almost been in February. So it's almost been a month since that Miami game. And it sounds like what Coach Young was saying after the game, that he does not expect him back this week. The ACC tournament is the goal to get him back. Chris, Virginia Tech's ceiling without Jalen Cone, without him, I mean, how much of a difference does he make when he's healthy or when he's not healthy?
Depends on if it's the Jalen Cone that is on and scoring 20 points or the Jalen Cone who is off and not scoring a single point, as he did in a couple games this year. You don't quite know what you're going to get. The thing is, he's got to be on because he's only 5'9", so he can't be very effective on the defensive end, right? So, in effect, there are times when it's kind of a 5-on-4 game when his shot isn't falling. So, I think he's one of those guys when he gets hot, you ride him. But you don't want to pull him after like 2 misses either. Because you never know when that guy's capable of heating up. I don't know. Managing the rotation as a basketball coach can be difficult. Joe Bamisil has a higher ceiling than anybody in the program. The more he plays right now, the better he's going to be. He's going to be next year. Like, I think he'll start next year. It wouldn't shock me a bit if he's in the starting lineup next year.
Where do you see him, as a 2 or a 3 or what?
He can play any 1, 2, 3, whatever, any of that. So I don't know who would come out, but at any rate, that's beside the point. But so it's like a Jalen Cone versus Bamisil to a certain extent. Like if Cone comes back healthy and you play him, that's somebody's minutes, right? So whose minutes are you going to take? Bamisil's, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you really want to do that? Because he's playing pretty decent ball right now, and the more he plays right now, the quicker he's going to be a great player. He's going to be a great player. It's just a matter of when. But, if he's playing 15, 20 minutes a game like he's doing right now, then that's going to happen sooner. That's why they pay Mike Young $2 million a year to figure stuff like that out.
So here's the rundown on Cone. I'm looking at his 3-point shooting. And in the 3 games that finished with Duke on January 12th, from 3-point range, he was 6 of 12, 4 of 10, and 3 of 5. That is 13 of 27.
Pretty good.
And that was through the Duke game.
Mm-hmm.
But beginning with the Wake Forest game, oddly enough, on January 17th, 0 of 4, 1 of 8, 1 of 5, 2 of 6, 3 of 9, and 0 of 1. So that is 7 of like 33 or something like that.
Right. So
yeah. So
like I said, which Jalen Cone is going to show up?
Yeah, he was clearly off, and that was a 5-game stretch.
Right.
So again, it doesn't sound like he's going to play this week. Let's take a look at the schedule for Virginia Tech. Final week of the regular season. Even though Senior Day was on Saturday, the final home game of the year at Castle Coliseum against Louisville, who is currently 13-5 on the year, 8-4 in the ACC. That's an important one because the Hokies are in 3rd place of the ACC at 9-4, and Louisville sits right behind them at 8-4. And gosh, is this finally the game that Virginia Tech can beat Louisville for the first time since 1971? Is that right?
1991.
No, excuse me.
Yeah, they used to be in the Metro Conference together. So if Tech wins this game, it locks up a double bye, right?
I pursue, yes.
I think so.
Because that would put them at 10-4. Louisville would be 8-5. Clemson's 9-5 right now. They have the tiebreaker over Clemson.
Over both of those, yeah.
Right.
So that's
North
really,
Carolina's also 9-5, by the way.
Right.
And if you don't win this game, then you're thrown into a pack of about 4 or 5 teams.
And you have to beat NC State, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, so that out of the way, to me, I'm not even thinking about that. I want to beat Louisville.
I know.
That's something you will got to get that monkey off your back at some point, man. And especially, it would be one thing if it was like a regular ACC team. But Louisville, man. Louisville is just such a... I'll put it this way: like there are a lot of fans around the ACC and a lot of Virginia Tech fans that didn't want to add West Virginia, but then we added Louisville.
And the reason for not adding West Virginia was, quote, the academics, unquote.
We added the most unethical athletic department in the entire country, quite possibly.
One of them.
Yeah, and I'd take 10 West Virginias over one Louisville, to be quite honest with you. So yeah, I want to beat Louisville for a lot of reasons. And the thing is, it's not really like all those guys that made Louisville so bad. They're gone now, but still the stain remains. At least it does for me.
Well, culture of the athletic program. So
right,
17 losses in a row, dating back to the last time Virginia Tech beat them was pretty handily, 72-56 in Blacksburg in February of 1991. So it has been 30 years and 17 games. And I've got the list of games in front of me. And honestly, only a couple of them were all that close. There was a game in January of 1995 where it was in Blacksburg, and Ace Custis had a chance at a tip-in at the buzzer to win it. And Tech lost that one 62-61.
That was the year Tech won the NIT. That was the last year in the Metro, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah, so you're right. That was 1995, and Tech was really good.
I bet we didn't play him again until we played him in the NIT.
Played him again 14 days later at Louisville and lost by 4, 78-74. And then, of course, there was a 94-90 loss in 2017 in Louisville. That was the game where Tech was just unconscious from three-point range, just making everything. But Louisville was so good it didn't matter. So Tech scores 90 and Louisville scores 94. And then, of course, the first game this year where Hunter Couture had a chance to win it at the buzzer and Tech lost 73-71. Other than that, they're all 8 points, 10 points, or more.
There was a game, though, I want to say Tech set the ACC record for a program.
That was that 94-90 loss.
Yeah, like 17 threes or something like that.
Still lost.
Take that with a grain of salt, because Ahmed Hill hit a couple from the corner in that game that actually bounced off the top of the backboard and then came down in. So
think about this. So Virginia Tech has not beaten Louisville since Ace Custis played basketball for the Hokies.
Well, actually, before that, since I think Bimbo Coles may have still been playing.
The 90-91 season, I guess. Still
the 90-91
Nobody in
season.
college.
If Ace's last year was 96-97, so yeah.
He wasn't enrolled at Virginia Tech when
he was still playing basketball on the Eastern Shore.
And now he's back as a assistant coach. And anybody in college right now was not alive the last time.
It's been a really long time.
So that's Louisville. And again, the Cardinals at 13-5, and then North Carolina State's they're on the outside looking in. They're 12-9. They're 8-8. However, you get a team that is not in the tournament, right, and doing everything they can, maybe desperate. Virginia Tech's going to see their best effort on Saturday.
Well, they lost their top scorer, like a month ago? Daniels? I don't know. What's his first name? I don't know off the top of my head, but they lost Daniels, and that was, I think, perceived to be, really, really bad news. But I think they've now won 4 or 5 in a row. So
they've won 4 straight, which is the second most in the league behind Clemson, who's won 5 in a row.
Yeah, so they're rolling, and got to get at least one of these, I think.
Yeah, there's no doubt. So again, you look at potential seeding. So Florida State's in first in the league; they're 10-3. Virginia's 11-4, and then Virginia Tech's in third at 9-4.
Right
behind the Hokies, Louisville 8-4, Clemson 9-5, North Carolina 9-5, and Georgia Tech 9-6. By the way, Hokies lose to Georgia Tech, but Joe Lunardi now has them in as a last 4 in team.
Georgia Tech.
So the ACC has 7 teams right now projected in the NCAA tournament this year.
Well, they beat Syracuse on Saturday.
I think Georgia Tech is when I evaluate coaching, I always look and see is a program less than the sum of its parts. And that's what I think of when I look at Georgia Tech. I'm granted they were blowing Virginia Tech out, so maybe I'm kind of but they've got some good players, and they've got some head-scratching losses.
Georgia Tech has been less than the sum of their parts ever since Bobby Cremins left.
Yeah.
So, and right now Duke is on the first 4 out with Michigan State. So how weird is that to see 2 blue bloods just sitting on the first 4 out right now. So anyway, so that's a look at the ACC. Big week for Virginia Tech. Hokies at home against Louisville on Wednesday, and then at North Carolina State on Saturday, and then that'll wrap up the regular season. All right, let's transition from talking about Virginia Tech men's basketball to a sport that we don't get to spend a lot of time talking about, but today we will certainly spend a lot of time talking about Virginia Tech men's indoor track and field winning the 2021 ACC Championship over the weekend. The Hokies totaled 136 points, which is the largest margin of victory in the modern era. This was absolutely incredible, and it was pure domination, Will, because...
So who was second? You need to list who was second.
I was about to get to that. North Carolina with 81 points in second place. Virginia Tech in first with 136 points.
So let me jump in here and say, there are 17 events, and Virginia Tech didn't even run the last one. If you know the way track meets go, they finish with a 4x400 because that's like one of the most exciting races. So track meets, and I've experienced this at the high school level. They go all day long, and they do a lot of the shorter events earlier, and then as they get towards the end, they at the high school level they start to run the mile and the 2 mile. And let me tell you something, man. When you're going to Radford High School track meets, the 2 mile is something that can go on forever. I've seen kids basically jog the 2 mile and take 35 to 40 minutes to run it. And so that's when a track meet really bogs down.
Why are they even running track?
What, in high school?
It takes them 35 minutes to...
Don't get me started.
Anyway, okay.
Don't get me started. I could run the 2 mile faster than 35 minutes.
Walk the 2 mile faster than 35 minutes.
Let's just say I had to keep my mouth shut at many track meets as I watched kids. I could power walk faster than they were, quote unquote, running the 2 mile. So anyway, back to the topic. So they finish up with the 4x400, and in looking at the sheet, and looking at the material for the track for the meet, I think there were about 13 4x400 teams that were going to run, and the season best time, Virginia Tech had the season best time, a 3:07. Now, there were 1 or 2 teams listed with no time at all, and I don't know how good they would or wouldn't be. The point I'm making is that's an event where Virginia Tech, it appears they were favored to win it, and they didn't even run it because they were up by so much.
So it was a blowout, and then we brought in, and then it's like we took the starters out, but we didn't even bring in the walk-ons. Right?
It's as if you dribble down the floor and then just hold the ball for 30 seconds, turn it over, and go back and play defense. It's that kind of thing. So the margin could have been even bigger.
A couple of notes. Ja'Cory Patterson repeated at both the 200-meter and 400-meter. The junior from South Carolina, who also has another year of eligibility. You think about, God, what records could he do next year? He became the ACC Championship champion in the 400-meter for the 3rd consecutive year. And as the release says, all the rest of the field could do was watch Patterson's spikes kick in front as he extended his lead.
Yeah,
that's a wow. Whoever wrote that release, that was really solid. I like that a lot. 45-38 in the finals. And he also took home the 2021 ACC Indoor Championships Men's Track MVP award. And there were many other people who took home gold, but Patterson was the headline, as he has been.
So, if you could leave early for a track draft and be the number 1 pick, he would be gone.
So I knew it was going on, and I thought, well, I'll go over to Twitter. I'll go over to the Hokies track and field Twitter and see what's happening. And their Twitter feed was personal record, ACC record, Tech record, over and over and over. And I'm looking at this Twitter feed thinking to myself, are they just it sounds like Tech is doing really good. So I go over and I check the scores, and they're way out front. I didn't know if I was looking at them just hyping up some of their runners that were doing well, but no, they were actually just crushing it.
Do you have any idea how many records Patterson has broken?
Every time he runs.
Yeah, I know, right. So he's going to
We got world records, international records,
right.
ACC records.
He did have the world record for under 21 for one of those.
World junior
runs,
record,
right?
or something like that.
He's going to set the record for most records at Virginia Tech. He's pretty much knocking all of them down.
Sometimes I wish I had Ja'Cory Patterson's speed when you got to park in Castle but get across the drill field in 10 minutes to get to class. Could you imagine
Yeah, but if it was cold, then everything in your face would freeze because you were running so fast.
So you have to walk backwards across the drill field?
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's the perils.
Tour guides have to do that.
Maybe you could set the record for fastest run across the drill field backwards. That's one you could go for.
Gosh, I don't want to see myself try to do that. Now, hey, so Virginia Tech men's and women's indoor track and field, 16 ACC titles between the two. When we think about some of the best coaches Virginia Tech has, director of track and field, Dave Giannelli, he's been here forever, and he just continues to get results. You were throwing it off before we went on the air. The amount of years, like 2010, 22. I mean, it's just been over and over. They consistently repeat. And, Jimmy Robertson's really well respected, right, as somebody who's been covering Tech athletics for a long time. And he tweeted something along the lines of, like, this is the best program Virginia Tech has, and it's not close. I mean, just in terms of results and championships. I mean,
consistency over the long period of time, you could certainly – I think that you could make a strong argument for that.
Yeah. You can't argue too much with that. The men's indoor team has won – the ACC Championship 2011, 13, 15, 17, 19, and now 2021. So that's 6 of them. They've got 4 outdoor titles, and then the women have 6 titles combined.
Robertson tweeted, Virginia Tech now has won 16 ACC titles in track and field, 10 men, 6 women. The best sport at the school, not even close.
And Dave Chinelli himself, if you look at the notes for the track and field championships, he's one of the higher ranked ACC coaches in terms of championships. I want to say historically he's something like already 6th or 7th. And it was so I ran this in our article on TSL where and Evan, you might want to pull it up so we can get these numbers exact. Virginia Tech now has the 5th most indoor titles or something, the 4th or 5th most.
Here we go. Yep, the indoor championship is 6 for Tech. They won 11, 13, 15, 17, 19. 4th most in conference history, despite Virginia Tech only being in the ACC since 04-05. Maryland won 26, Florida State 13, Clemson 12, Virginia Tech 6.
Right. And the Maryland 26 is odd because if you look at ACC track records, Maryland just won it from the mid-50s on. Maryland won it every year, pretty much. So that's where they piled up their big numbers before they left for the Big Ten. So Dave Chinelli is one of the better track and field coaches in ACC history.
And speaking of really good coaches who have gotten results, Tony Roby has done that a lot since he's taken over as head coach of Virginia Tech Wrestling. By the way, Southeast Regional Training Center, go to southeastrtc.com to get involved with Virginia Tech Wrestling. And why not? When you have the undefeated season, you finish ranked number 2 and number 3 in respective polls. On Sunday night, the ACC Championships, hosted by North Carolina State, certainly had a little bit of a different feel to it because you did not know if Mekhi Lewis would be able to wrestle. That was the burning question going in. Yeah. He did not wrestle, but I do want to read the statement that Virginia Tech Wrestling put out on Mekhi before yesterday. So he ended up not wrestling, right? He goes in and he
injury default.
Injury default. So he literally just stepped on the mat. But you have to wrestle or default to qualify for the NCAA tournament. So here's a statement. Under the advisement of our medical staff, we have decided to medically withdraw Mekhi Lewis from the remainder of the ACC Championship. We are confident that Mekhi will be healthy for the NCAA Championships and hopeful that he receives an at-large bid from the selection committee for the opportunity to compete in St. Louis. So before we get into everything else, I mean, it sounds like really good news that he is going to get a chance to defend his crown at 165.
Yes, it looks that way, and that's they actually put in the statement. They didn't say we are working towards it. They said we are confident. Mm-hmm. So, without Mekhi wrestling, it's difficult to win an ACC championship, yeah. And I'm not sure even if he had wrestled that NC State won by a lot.
They did.
They wrapped it up early, so I'm not sure even Mekhi being there and wrestling all the way through to a championship would have closed the gap.
However, big day for Virginia Tech Wrestling, though. And the headline was Corbin Myers. I mean, we've been talking about it all this time. Corbin Myers not getting the attention he deserved. He's hardly moved up in the polls. And he beats Mickey Philippi of Pittsburgh, who is one of the best wrestlers at 133. He beats him in the championship. He takes home most outstanding wrestler. Really well-deserved for the year that he's had. Coming off of injury, graduate student, best he's wrestled his entire career. And that's now 2 consecutive wins he's had against Philippi. It's the first time Philippi's lost in the ACC Championships in his time at Pittsburgh. So
it's the first time Philippi has lost in the ACC Championships, not overall, because I thought I read
correct,
somewhere.
Not overall, just in the ACC Championship postseason. Yeah. Hunter Katka, extremely impressive, wrestling at heavyweight in place of the injured John Borst, lost in sudden victory in the championship. But Jacob Camacho. You ready for this?
I was about to ask, what did Macho Camacho do?
Macho Camacho wrestled Sam Latona in the championship in 125. You want to guess what happened?
Latona won.
Latona won. He beat Jacob Camacho again.
Not so Macho Camacho.
So I'm laughing because they do these random starts sometimes for duels, and they did a random start yesterday for the championships. They start at 133, and I'm like, nah, the ACC knew exactly what they were doing starting at 133 because where do we end? 125 with Latona and Camacho. Of course, the team championship was already wrapped up, but Latona, it was low scoring, but he wrestled really, really well. 2-1 the final, and I thought he was extremely sound defensively because Camacho got a couple of shots in late, Will.
Yes.
And I thought he was really sound defensively in the win.
I went on the board and I said I was all Rock Harrison in my basement, man. I was all twisting around. He go to make
two. So anyway, I mean, again, no Mekhi Lewis, no John Boris. Hokies still finished second, and they qualify. 7 Hokies qualify for the NCAAs. We'll wait to see about Mekhi Lewis, and that gets started here shortly.
So let's give a shout out. Yeah, the at-large selections are March 10th, so that's when we'll find out about Mekhi, and he'll
get a bid.
Yeah, he should get a bid. So let's give a shout out to Dakota Howard.
Yeah, Junkyard Dog.
Did you watch him?
I was following along with tweet updates. It just everything was all caps and exclamation points in a good way.
He is not Virginia Tech's best wrestler, but he is the most fun to watch. Because he went
3-1, took third place at 74.
Yeah, so he was seated 4th, I believe, right? Yeah, seated 4th, and so he just has this motor, and they say it every time he wrestles. They say, "You better not give up on him. Better not give up on him." So when Mekhi got hurt against Pittsburgh, Dakota Howard wrestled next. He's 174 right after Mekhi, and he demolished the guy he was wrestling. He took him down, let him get up, took him down, just over and over and over, and just destroyed him. And so in the ACC Championships yesterday, I watched his when he was wrestling for 3rd place. Going into the 3rd period, he was down 7-2, and he started doing that same thing. Takedown, let the guy get up. Takedown, let the guy get up. And he caught him. He took him down like in I think the last 10 seconds to tie him at 9. So it goes into sudden victory overtime.
Against the UVA wrestler, Chris, by the way.
I am not exaggerating. They barely started the clock in overtime, and he went in, boom, took the guy down. It was within 5 seconds.
Junkyard Dog, that's
the
what they call
recap said within 10 seconds, but no, it was faster than that. I've never seen – now, my son Ronan wrestled when he was a kid, and I remember one little gold medal match he had where it was a really even matchup, and he just wore the other kid out. He was like that. He could wrestle the entire 7 minutes. But I have those are 2 matches that I just described from Howard where the opposition was demoralized, and just there's nothing I can do. Just take me down again. So he's just a trip to watch, and I think he's only a sophomore.
Yep, correct. And he's at 174, and he came in around like 195, 200, and now he's dropped down 2 weight classes. And I'm excited to see him next year with another full off season coming back to 74. Yeah. Last thing I want to mention: Hunter Bolin, ranked number 1 at 184. He's beaten Trent Hidley many times. He's in the top 5. He falls 3-1. At 184. That also went to sudden victory.
Yeah. So and you watch that, and Hunter just, he just made a mistake. He just got caught in a quasi scramble situation, and Hidley finally got around him and beat him for the first time. Those guys always wrestle. It's always 3-1 or 2-1.
Right. Low scoring.
Yeah.
Great defense. One shot could be the difference.
This one went in a sudden victory, 1-1, and you could see it when Hidley got around behind him. Hunter just kind of rolled over and he hit his hand on the mat like, oh, man, I blew that,
Well, you said at-large bids come out March 10th?
Yes.
And we'll find out more about where the Hokies are seated and weight classes coming up on March 10th. But
so 7 of them already have bids based on where they finished in the ACCs.
Mm-hmm.
Mekhi is expected to get one. And the guys on the wrestling board are saying that Sam Hilligus will also get one. So they'll take 8 or 9 wrestlers.
So that probably means 97 is the only weight class that Virginia Tech will not have a wrestler.
Correct.
All right. Well, listen, we've talked about an ACC championship. We've talked about an ACC program record. Chris Coleman, what sport should we transition to next when we come back from break? What do you think? Big weekend for the Diamond?
I think so. It seems like it really was, wasn't it?
Yeah. Big weekend for now. 16th ranked
16th ranked
Virginia Tech baseball. We'll step aside for a break here. Episode 169 of the Tech Sideline Podcast. When we come back, Virginia Tech baseball takes the series in Coral Gables for the first time in program history, taking the series against 6th ranked Miami. All that and more coming up. Episode 169 of the Tech Sideline Podcast, presented by Campus Emporium, the Southeast Regional Training Center, and Anytime Fitness. Welcome back in, episode 169 of the Tech Sideline Podcast, recording on Monday morning, March the 1st. It is great to have you with us. Evan Hughes alongside Chris Coleman, Will Stewart, Malcolm Stewart behind the scenes. The Tech Sideline Podcast is presented by Campus Emporium. They're proud to sponsor the Tech Sideline community. A portion of every sale is returned to Virginia Tech in support of its endowment for excellence, student programming, and need-based scholarships. We have been serving the Virginia Tech community for over 25 years from our locations in Blacksburg and our online store. Please visit the number one source for Virginia Tech merchandise. CampusEmporium.com is the website, or come see us 207 North Main Street or 1337 South Main Street. Will Stewart is holding a really cool hat in his hand right now. Will, for our listeners who can't see, what are you holding?
Retro State Outline hat by 47 brand. And so what that means is it's the classic Tech logo from the mid '70s, where you had the state of Virginia with the word Tech on top of it. So a real nice hat. The embroidery is really nice. So you see the word Tech in white. It's like it's that raised embroidery.
3D.
Really nice stuff. Yeah. So here's what the hat looks like on.
The late coach Chuck Hardman would actually wear a really cool jacket.
Oh, man.
That logo.
Great jacket.
And,
so $24.99, 100% cotton. Adjustable little snapback thing here. It's not the snapback where you peel it, but it's just an adjustable clasp that does snap into place also.
Yeah, those jackets that Hartman wore were actually team jackets from like late 80s, early 90s. Brad Klontz told me he had one with his name on it. Yeah, so everybody on the team got a jacket like that with their name on it.
Well, you know that the late and the great coach Chuck Hartman was smiling down this weekend in a big way, because 16th ranked, the rankings came out this morning, folks. One pause, Virginia Tech baseball ranked 16th. They have not been ranked since March of 2017. Hokies number 16 in the country. And let's talk about what was arguably the biggest series win of the John Sheff era. Mm-hmm. Virginia Tech opens their ACC slate this past weekend in Coral Gables against some polls had them as ranked as high as number 3. Some had them as high as number 6, which it had on the score bug for the broadcast. Hokies take the series. We'll call it against 6th-ranked Miami, as it has on Hokiesports.com. 5-3 winners on Friday in Game 1. They lose 3-0 in Game 2. And then in the rubber game on Sunday, 9-6 winners. This is a Miami team that just beat Florida in a series week before. And Florida's one of the best teams in the SEC.
Right. So Florida was number 1 in the country, and Miami took 2 out of 3 from them. And then, so Miami moves up to number 3, number 6, whichever one of the 5.
Well, there was even a poll
6.
that had Miami at number 1.
There was like 5 baseball polls, whichever one you want to listen to. And then Virginia Tech takes 2 out of 3 for Miami, who had just taken 2 out of 3 from number 1 Florida, right? So
how big of a series win is this for Virginia Tech? What does this mean for the Hokies?
It means a lot. It doesn't seem like a fluke, based on what we saw from their pitching last year. And what we've seen from their pitching through 6 games so far this season, it appears that they've. I've already said Ryan Fecteau is one of the best pitching coaches in the country. His record speaks for itself throughout everywhere he's been in his career. And I think the question mark about this team was how good is the bullpen. Like, I didn't think it was going to be bad, but we didn't know exactly how good it was going to be. And I guess, after 6 games, you still don't. But that was quality competition they faced. And, the bullpen held on to the game on Sunday. I don't think the bullpen.
Friday.
Yeah, well, that's what it was, a bullpen game.
Friday, they threw 6 scoreless innings to end the game Friday.
And even their starter on Friday night is probably like a relief pitcher. Like I would say, that was a bullpen game the whole way through. Like the Brewers. Was it the Brewers who sometimes in the majors
Go by, or the A's sometimes go by.
Right, they don't even have a fifth starter. They just every fifth day they're just the bullpen.
They work out the bullpen.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
So it was kind of like that for Virginia Tech on Friday, and then I don't think they gave up any runs on Saturday, did they?
Well, they lost 3-0.
They lost 3. I mean the bullpen itself.
The bullpen.
Right.
I think that's right.
I think that they were all charged for the starter. I think.
Here.
So yeah, amazing weekend for Tech's bullpen. As far as
you're
I'm
correct.
concerned.
The bullpen did not give up any runs on Saturday, and we were texting throughout the game on Friday because they went down early, and it was a really shaky start for Peyton Alford, who got the start on Friday, and then he really settled in to his own. He went just 3 innings, but he struck out 4 batters. He worked out of a couple of jams, and then Matthew Siver, like 4 innings of scoreless work. How about this? 6 strikeouts to 1 walk, and he gave up 1 hit, no runs. Chris is right. It just feels like the bullpen was the story going into the year for Tech, and they're showing right now the reason they are where they are is because of their bullpen right now.
Yep. So my question, when we started talking about this, I thought, is this fool's gold? And Chris answered that. He said it doesn't feel like a fluke.
It's like, remember last year in basketball when beating Michigan State felt like a fluke, but this year when beating Villanova didn't feel like a fluke? Yeah. It's kind of like that.
And so Friday night, from what I understand, Tech put some runners on for Miami with errors.
Correct.
And then Miami made some base running mistakes to kind of cancel that out. I just get the vibe that Friday night, not only were Tech's pitchers, the relief pitchers pitched well, but Miami wasn't really on their game Friday night. So Tech stole one. Saturday probably, kind of went the way you would expect it to. And then Sunday, to me, what was impressive about Sunday was Virginia Tech got down and then scored 7 runs in the 6th, 7th, and 8th inning. Evan, is that what it was?
They scored, correct. They plated 7 in the 6th, 7th, 8th combined. 2 in the 6th, 3 in the 7th, 2 in the 8th.
So were they down 6-2?
They were down 4-2 going into the 6th inning, and then Tech tied it 4-4, top 6. Miami came back, went up 6-4. And then Tech scored 5 unanswered.
Virginia Tech, yeah.
And that was the thing. They came from behind in game 1 and on Friday. What stood out to me most was if you look at the box score on Friday, the last Virginia Tech scored 2 runs in the 3rd, and then no team scored runs from the 4th to the end of the game. And then Tech didn't score a run on Saturday. So they went, 13 straight innings offensively without a run, and then found a way to get the bats hot late in the game in game 3 and came from behind. I think that's a mark of a good team, being able to come from behind on the road. And this is a Miami team that was preseason picked number 1 in the Coastal, which is just stacked. Yeah. So this was impressive. It really was. And we knew that Simonelli's a really good pitcher. He also walked 5 guys yesterday, though. So the bullpen
it wasn't his best day.
It wasn't. Sure. And Weicker and Okuda and Hurd and this kid Shane Connolly, who picked up the save on Sunday and pitched on Friday.
I think he had the save on. Did he have the save on Friday also?
Let's see.
Because I know he pitched the last 2 innings.
He did. So he had the save on. And again, they say, Coach Facto, they don't like to have a quote-unquote closer. Mm-hmm. But Connell, I think they like to kind of ride with the hot hand. And this guy got up and was able to throw 2 of 3 games this weekend.
I think when you have 2 come from behind victories, well, you can't have come from behind victories if your bullpen is giving up runs, right? So bullpens give you a chance to come back.
Now, I think they did get Miami to hit into something like 3 double plays on Friday night.
Well, that means defense has improved. Because, this is a program where we've, generally speaking, Tech has always been able to hit. Part of that is because, they play at Union Bank Park, and the wind is almost always gusting out. Like I drove by the park for the Radford game the other day. I was just driving by while they were playing the game, and the flags in center field
whipping.
Well,
man, they were whipping, and they were whipping straight out.
Kidding.
And then the elevation in Blacksburg is high. It's not quite.
So the air's thinner.
It's not quite Colorado Rockies, but so yeah, you're going to have a lot of home runs in this area. You're going to score some runs. You have to have a good defensive infield, and you have to have pitchers that can get ground balls.
Right.
Because if you give up fly balls in Blacksburg, you're going to give up runs. I remember going to a Tech UNC game several years ago. and one of the UNC hitters hit what I thought was a routine fly ball to left field, and it just kept going and going and going and going, and it's like, man, he didn't make that good a contact on it. He just got it really, really high, and stayed up a long
took
time.
Care of the rest.
Right, exactly. So you got to have pitchers. You got to be able to recruit good defensive infielders and ground ball pitchers. And so that's the key to success at Virginia Tech, and I think they appear to have understood that and done that.
And this kid TJ Rumfield transferred from Texas Tech. I mean, 6'5", 225, lefty. Only reason he transferred to Texas Tech is because they've got one of the best first basemen in the country. He's looking for more playing time. He's a redshirt freshman.
Rumfield hit like 450 in 9 games a couple of years ago.
Last year,
right?
And he hit 2 home runs against Radford. Then he had a home run on Friday in game 1, and it just feels like with him and then Gavin Cross, who had the big home run on Sunday, who was a freshman All-American a year ago, that this offense just really does have elite guys who can get on base. I also think Tech's a really good small ball team. When they need to go small ball, they can, and they can bunt well. And they're also aggressive. Tech had averaged over 2 stolen bases a year ago, which was some of the best numbers in the country, and they're quick on the base paths.
They appear to be a balanced team.
Yes,
they're not an elite hitting team. They don't have elite starting pitching. They don't have an elite bullpen, although maybe early indications are it's pretty darn good.
Yep.
But they're just solid across the board. You don't see like I don't look at that team so far, 6 games in, and think, oh man, they're really weak right there. Now, as time goes by, we all know that weaknesses show up the more games you play.
Right.
So maybe we will find one. But.
So when I look at wrestling, I see a team that's pretty good and really young. Is that the case with baseball? Would you say they're young?
I would say that. Now, keep in mind, they're winning without, I think, arguably their best player, Nick Biddison, who is injured, and he should be back at some point this season. He had off-season surgery, I believe. But, yeah, I mean, Madden is a junior, or maybe a redshirt or COVID sophomore, I forget.
Yeah.
But they are pretty, I mean, you're now finally.
I don't think they're young. I don't think you can say that.
Okay.
Baseball. I don't think very many ACC baseball teams you can classify as young. I mean, if you have to come in and play a bunch of freshmen at the ACC level, you're going to get smoked.
In the Coastal.
Right.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, and keep in mind this, too, though. So Coach Sheff's in his 4th year. You're starting to see, though, his first recruits now becoming the sophomores, the juniors, and being some of the best players on the team. So, I mean, it was a total rebuild when he got here.
Oh,
I mean,
gosh.
build it in Blacksburg.
Yeah.
It's no.
They really mean that.
They had to build it. I mean,
there was no, let's keep the foundation and keep this part and maybe do better here. Nope, it was sledgehammer, knock it all down.
By the
total
way,
rebuild.
Did you guys see that this weekend? I love that. For those who don't know, after every home run, they throw a sledgehammer out to the guy who hits the home run. I think it's pretty cool, actually. I mean,
what does he do with the sledgehammer?
He just comes down and right in the middle of everybody.
It's like UVA football when they
break the rock.
Yeah,
but it's outside the dugout. By the way, as we transition away, Virginia Tech's weekend series, this is where the Hokies rank in various college baseball polls. Chris Hiron just tweeted out. Number 24, D1Baseball.com. Number 16, Baseball America. Number 27, Collegiate Baseball Newspaper. And not ranked in the NCBWA and USA Today. So there's a bunch of different polls for baseball.
Yeah.
There's no AP poll.
I don't know if they've started doing RPI rankings yet for baseball. It's funny that they still do RPI for baseball. They have not switched to a net-like system. Although I don't know that you could in baseball because you don't have offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency. Yeah. It would have to be a completely different set of metrics, but. I tried to look up baseball RPI last week, and they don't have new numbers for this year. It was still last year's numbers.
So, by the way, big weekend series. Home against North Carolina, 3-game series. They're coming off a series win against Virginia. And the Tar Heels are ranked number 17 in that poll. The Hokies are ranked 16th.
They're new in the polls as well.
Correct. Correct. So, anyways, every ACC series is important. And even this week, I mean, Boston College is in the top 25.
There was a thread on the subscriber board the other day. Is Boston College ever good in anything?
Right.
And people were joking, well, they're good in hockey and stuff like that. But they're actually ranked in baseball right now, which is shocking. it might not last. It probably won't last.
Well, in indoor track, they finished dead last with 7.5 points.
All right, here we go. Let's.
So wait a minute. Let's do the weather. The Friday weather is a high of 48 and mostly sunny. Saturday high of 49, and what does that icon mean? Interval of clouds and sunshine. And Sunday 52 and sunny.
So it could be a lot worse in Blacksburg this time of year.
Yeah. That's actually pretty good. So do me a favor. Do you still have the schedule in front of you? I have glanced at the schedule, and don't they do a weird thing where they play UVA 3 times once?
What do you mean?
They don't have a set weekend series against them. They spread games against UVA out throughout the season.
They've got a weekend series at home against Virginia, April 30th, May 1st.
I wonder if I'm
2nd.
confusing it with softball.
Softball only plays them, I think, twice this year, and you're right. It's 2 weekday games, so it's
Right.
not an official
So
series.
I'm getting confused with softball.
That's the only thing we were lacking this weekend: is softball sweeping someone, and not giving up any runs.
And a quick update on softball. We'll go ahead and wrap up our 2 teams on the diamond. Softball has entered a COVID pause in their season. They had their doubleheader against Army postponed this Saturday, and they will not play their 4 games home series against Boston College this coming weekend.
That's too bad.
So they get the big win, series win against Florida State, series win against Clemson, and now put on a pause. So we'll keep you posted if we get any more information. I'm sure they'll still be high in the polls. ACC had a good weekend in softball, which is good, I think, for the conference as a whole. But Virginia Tech softball not in action this weekend. I think they're still ranked around 14th the last time I checked in the country. Let's quickly transition here and talk about 2. We'll get that in a minute. We'll talk about the 2 football recruits that Tech signed last week in just a moment. Quickly, Virginia Tech women's basketball finishes the regular season on Sunday, playing North Carolina for the 3rd time this regular season. The Tar Heels, I want to say they had won 5 or 6 in a row. So had the Hokies. Virginia Tech in the second quarter had a 14-point lead. It was a competitive game. They fall 68-63 to North Carolina. Their 6-game ACC win streak snapped to close the regular season.
Yeah, they had a 14-point lead at halftime and gave almost all of it up in the third quarter. Tech only took 8 shots in the third quarter and only made 2.
When Tech does lose, which they have not done much of recently, but this is the entire Kenny Brooks era I'm talking about. When Tech does lose, a lot of times it's when they hold
It's like one really
fairly
bad
quarter
lead,
and then they collapse.
They outscored North Carolina 27-12 in the second quarter, but then were outscored 21-8 in the third quarter.
Yeah.
They actually only scored 18 points in the second half. Whew. So that means Virginia Tech, if they'd won, they would have clinched the 6th seed. Now they're the 7th seed in the ACC tournament that starts this week in Greensboro. They will play Miami to open, who they beat a couple of weeks ago, 75-55 on the road. But then they get North Carolina State in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and then the 2 times they played State didn't have their best player.
Correct. Elizabeth Cunane, their center.
Yeah, that's an interesting subplot where she played. Were she and Kitley on the same team, or were
yes,
they opposing
they go
teams?
way back.
Yeah.
Yep. They so in the last couple of times too, Cunane has gotten the best of Kitley the last couple of times that they've matched up. So that's going to be a really good matchup down low
if they get to that.
Correct, and they got to take care of Miami on. So they play Thursday, March 4th, 6 p.m. in Greensboro. That is the update on Virginia Tech women's basketball. Again, I would assume, I haven't seen the latest projection, but they're probably still in the NCAA tournament as we speak. And I'm sure one win would have the Hokies feel pretty good.
Yeah, sure.
So, and that game Thursday, the first couple of rounds are going to be on RSN, and then I think the semifinals are on ACC Network, and then the finals are on one of the ESPNs. So let's real quick, let me pull up women's bracketology and see if I can get it to load. Let's see.
We're so prepared.
We are. Well, if my phone was faster. I'm having trouble seeing them on a scan, but I'm sure they're still in there. Virginia Tech is a 9 seed still in the Alamo region.
Alamo, okay.
Yeah.
Hold on. How are they doing the NCAA women's tournament?
You know what the regions say? They say Alamo, Hemisphere, Mercado, and Riverwalk. So I don't know what that means.
It's got to be they got to be playing it in some city, and those must be 4 areas of the city.
Could be, yeah. Okay.
That's good. They're playing in San Antonio.
The entire tourney will be played at a single destination, the San Antonio region, with multiple venues.
Right.
Just like the men's tournament.
Right. So they're playing in the Alamo Dome, I guess, and they're playing somewhere near a river, and I don't know the other two. But
yeah. So appreciate you listening as we read our phones.
All women's basketball teams in San Antonio. As I get a text from Damian Sales, who's watching.
All right,
let's transition for women's basketball quickly. I want to touch on 2 commitments that Virginia Tech football picked up last week. Let's start with 2022 offensive lineman commit Braylon Moore. He is from Freedom High School in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. 6'3", 290 pounds. Had offers from Syracuse, Kent State, East Carolina, Navy, Tulane, among others. Chris, you wrote an article on him. You put his huddle in the article on TechSideline.com. What do you like about Braylon Moore?
He's an interior lineman. He's Caden Moore's brother. Caden was a true freshman this past year for the Hokies and will be a true freshman again this coming year.
Yeah.
But we've heard really good things about Tech's 2 true freshman linemen from this past year, especially Parker Clements, but also Caden Moore. And Caden Moore did not have I don't think his offer list was as good as Braylon Moore's, to be honest with you. So yeah, I think he's a good, solid interior line prospect. Could potentially play guard or center.
And then the other commitment, Harrison St. Germain. I love that name. I just can't wait for Lays to be like, touchdown St. Germain. 6'4", 230 pounds, Westfield High School, Chantilly, Virginia. Picked the Hokies over Wake Forest, class of 2022. 6'4", 230-pound tight end. So he's a big guy for being in high school.
Well, and who knows, he might be bigger than that now. I mean, these kids haven't been to camps since 2019, and that's where all these heights and weights come from.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got right now, I mean, you could DM a kid and be like, yo, what's your height, weight? And somebody who's 6'2", 185 might tell you 6'4", 210. You just don't know for sure. So a lot of this stuff isn't getting updated because these guys, for all I know, he might be 6'5", 245 now. Or maybe that's exactly right. Who really knows? But in-state recruiting, and I wrote an article about this last week, is you're seeing Tech offer a lot of guys from like Georgia and things like that. And yes, Tech is always going to offer a lot of out-of-state kids, but they're doing it more this year because there's more information about the out-of-state kids, because most out-of-state kids played football this past year and Virginia kids did not.
Played in the fall.
So if they've offered St. Germain, that means they really like him, because they haven't seen any of these in-state kids in person since 2019.
Yeah.
And granted, they haven't seen the Georgia kids in person since that year too, but they've at least been able to watch film of those kids playing football.
Yeah.
And because they got to play this past year and Virginia kids didn't. So Tech, they're probably understandably a little bit slow offering in-state players right now, even though they do want more in-state players. But you don't want to offer them just for the sake of offering. Like, their junior seasons just started this past weekend for class of 2022 guys, I guess, or 2023 guys. Yeah, 2022 guys. They're going to play 2 seasons in 1 year,
that is
a
correct.
Spring season and a fall season. So the evaluation period for those guys, it's 6 months behind.
Right.
Everywhere else. You have a lot more information on Georgia kids and Florida kids and Tennessee kids and Texas kids and things like that, because they played and Virginia kids didn't. So if you're wondering where the offers are for in-state kids, it's because Virginia didn't play football this past fall.
Yeah.
All right, 2 quick things of note. Transitioning away from football, Virginia Tech lacrosse played this weekend against 12th-ranked Virginia, fell 12-10 in a back-and-forth game. Saw a stat on the board, though. The Hokies lost 17 of 22 draws. And it's tough to win when you're not
the other
winning,
team has the ball.
You don't have draw control. So that was a close one, though. So Virginia Tech 2-2 on the year, wins against Liberty and Longwood, and losses to 12th-ranked Duke 12-8, and lost to now 12th-ranked Virginia 12-10. Their next game is against Notre Dame in South Bend this Saturday. So again, for lacrosse, I mean, it's just a gauntlet every time they play. It's also a gauntlet for Virginia Tech men's soccer, who played this weekend. It was a top 5 matchup. They went to Coastal, both teams in the top 5, and the Hokies won their first game of the spring 2-0.
So I was surprised to find out Coastal Carolina is ranked 5th.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty high too. For the shot to clears.
I think they've done good work with their facilities down there, and they're at the beach. And if you can leverage that, you ought to be able to be good in whatever sport.
Some kids will come play there just because you're at the beach.
Yeah.
Goals by Jacob Lavovitz, his 4th of the year, carrying over from the fall. And Sievert Haugley converted on a penalty kick. So the Hokies won 2-0. And again, their RPI is one of the best in the country. And to start off your season when you have an ACC slate coming up against like Duke, Clemson, Virginia, Pitt, to go play on the road against a top 5 team in Coastal.
So how does it work? They play in the fall and then play like a whole another season.
Yeah,
in
they're
the spring?
playing more spring, and it was being explained to me last night. But yeah, there's going to be something of like the top 2 teams in the ACC will play each other at the end of the year, not for the ACC championship that was decided last year, but who gets the automatic qualifier, I guess, at the end of the year. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But yeah, the Hokies men's soccer will play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 matches this spring, including Coastal Carolina.
And some
then the
teams'
NCAA
rosters
tournament
are different because the MLS draft was in the
That's
middle of the
right.
season.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
We lost players. UVA lost players. UNC lost players. It's a part of the
And
deal.
there has not been a freshman class to come in and.
However, I do believe Christo Strickler is still playing.
He's
for
stuck
Virginia
around,
Tech.
I think. Yeah.
So,
He was a second-round pick, right?
second-round pick.
He would probably like go out on loan or something this year, and I doubt he would.
However, he did not play yesterday against Coastal Carolina, so did not log any minutes. Okay.
Yeah, that's a professional team owns his rights now. So him going out and playing 90 minutes and maybe getting hurt against Coastal Carolina, I don't think I would be very happy if I was that professional team. Yeah.
So what a whip around we just did from an ACC championship to a program record set by Virginia Tech men's basketball to Virginia Tech baseball being ranked. There's a lot of good going on in Tech athletics. If you just look, everything going on right now is a lot of winning going on. So
There's a lot of winning going on.
and so let's go ahead and transition here into our favorite part of the podcast. That's where you get to ask questions to Will and Chris, our Q&A portion of the podcast. First of all, a lot of people fired up. I love going to the top of the it's like the boards, the top of the chats. Like, good morning, Hokies, good morning. A lot of people fired up for the podcast this morning. Kyle Seiler says, this music makes me want to run through a brick wall in the beginning. Yeah, about the intro.
Like it.
So he was Kyle, we appreciate your enthusiasm here on this
You
Monday
sure he didn't
morning,
mean
my friend.
the intermission music?
No, it was early. It was the
We've got a new intro. The music's the same. The pictures are different.
right.
Tim Hokie 85 did it for us, and I think we're still running the old one, though. I knew there was something I was forgetting this morning.
Let's transition here. Let's get some questions. Okay, Minister 804. Like that. Shout out 804, Richmond. How realistic is the thought that Tech could have a real chance to make it to the ACC basketball championship game?
It's realistic.
Yeah.
Just look around this league, and you'll see a bunch of teams that, like, there's not like one big dominant top 10 team this year. I mean, even Florida State was only ranked 11th, and that was before they lost to UNC this past weekend. And Virginia is going to drop.
Mm-hmm.
Virginia Tech lost to Georgia Tech, but then they beat Wake by 38. So I don't know what that'll do to them in the polls, but there's a possibility that there's not a top 15 ACC team in the next poll.
I would say the chances of making the championship game increase if Louisville and Florida State are on the other side of the bracket.
Right.
I'm half joking, half cynical. Those are the programs I worry about the most.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
What do you guys think is the highest possible seed that Virginia Tech could attain at the NCAA tournament? Let's say 2-0 in the last 2 games and win the ACC tournament. Not saying he's saying Tyler Daly. Not saying either of these should be expected, but just curious. I mean, what's the absolute highest Tech could get?
Well,
to?
so much of it's due to what other teams do, but I would have to say, you all right over there?
Malcolm is making his presence felt.
So I don't know, probably like a 4 or something like that.
I was going to say, if they win the ACC tournament, I bet they're a 4.
Richie Goad, wonder how much the quote-unquote senior day affected our energy. We just seemed in the zone. Great win. I want to play off that real quick because I had the chance to be there in person.
Oh, yeah?
And I was doing official stats with ACC Network. And, I mean, the Hokies were just I mean, when I mean energized, I mean like screaming and yelling in warm-ups beforehand, and a good I actually made a comment to David Cunningham. I was like, Tech just seems like so amped to play this game.
They like Beatty, in case nobody figured that out by now.
I mean, It was like they all like warm up and they're in people's faces, like, you know, Tech warmed up against Tech, and you know, just like scream. I mean, I was just like really intense, and I just had this. I mean, yeah, it doesn't surprise me. So I agree with you totally, Richie. That
So sitting at home, the previous game ran overtime, so. They didn't cut into the Virginia Tech Wake Forest game until I think the first media time.
Yeah, and if you look at the if you go to the ACC Digital Network and they do the game,
Highlights,
not the highlights. Why is the word not in my head? It's like 7 minutes long. They show the whole game.
Oh, the condensed game.
The condensed game. Yeah, it starts. It's like 13-2.
Right.
That's the first play of the condensed
Kevin
game.
Aluma had made 2 3-pointers before I even got to watch the game.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. So I went upstairs once I figured out that, you know, they weren't going to show the start of the game, and turned on the radio. So, of course, another radio game, another win. And I'm not counting the Georgia Tech game because of COVID.
Yeah.
Great questions. And last one from Billy Parvinham, a football question. Can you guys provide any insight into how football home and homes are scheduled? For example, I don't understand how one with Tennessee hasn't been done yet. Is there a team you'd like us to do one with?
Well, both teams have to want to play. And Tennessee, the way Tennessee sees it, is they already play a tough enough SEC schedule as it is, so why would they play one more losable game? It's not like they need the money. They have a 105,000, 110,000 seat stadium, and they've got an SEC TV contract. And they already play plenty of good opponents. So why add one more? That's the way they see it. To
this day, I'm still surprised that the battle at Bristol happened.
Me too. So I think back in the day before the big TV contracts and there was so much money involved, I think it would be easier to schedule a series like that, but I don't see it happening going forward. I know it makes sense from a proximity standpoint, from a fan's perspective and things like that. But from a business perspective, I don't think it makes any sense for Tennessee. Like, put yourself in Tennessee's shoes. You don't need any money. All you do is add a possible loss.
It's only for the fans, right? That's the biggest thing.
And it's not like Virginia Tech is a top 10 program anymore. Like, it's not even a draw for Tennessee from a national level. It's not like it's going to be, Virginia Tech and Tennessee, let's get that 8 o'clock on ESPN. No, this would be like a noon ESPN2 game because both programs aren't very good, quite frankly. So it wouldn't even bring any national hype with it. So from Tennessee's standpoint, I don't think they're interested at all in playing.
They historically have not wanted to play Virginia Tech, you know, and I know – I'm not saying that Tech is just sitting there with bated breath wanting to sign a home and home with Tennessee. They'd probably do it given the opportunity, particularly now that Virginia Tech doesn't sell out season tickets anymore. They'll take any big opponent coming in that they can get. But, you know, if you, like Chris said, if you put yourself in Tennessee's place, you try to get 7 home games a year. 4 of them are going to be SEC games, so you just, you know, fill the other 3 slots with whoever. Now, that said, I don't know who they do have home and homes signed with.
Yeah.
It is difficult at times for me to talk about Tennessee because there is a portion of our fan base that is locked into Tennessee and knows everything about them because they live down there. They live down in Bristol or they live in Tennessee. So I start talking about Tennessee and I say ignorant things and people get mad at me. I don't pay any attention to Tennessee. So if I say something dumb, please forgive me. I don't live in Bristol and I don't get subjected to Tennessee coverage all the time.
The other part of the question is who we'd like to see Tech play in a home and home.
South Carolina.
South Carolina would be my answer to that.
Is that because of Shane Beamer or is that just before?
That's just a locality.
Just because. I've always liked South Carolina.
They're only 2.5 hours to Charlotte from here, and then another hour from that to South Carolina. It's a really close school, and we never play them. Now, it's the same issue with them, except they're in the SEC East.
Correct.
Is Tennessee in the West? Tennessee's in the West, right?
They're both in the East.
They're both in the East.
And they have to play Clemson every year.
Right. So South Carolina already plays Clemson every year, and then they play Florida, and then they play Georgia. Right? I mean, and then whoever their crossover opponents are. I mean, their schedule is brutal. So then adding a road game in some years to Virginia Tech, it's just probably not in their best interest. Now, Virginia Tech has scheduled to play them in Atlanta in a neutral site game.
Which is a weird choice.
Why is that game not in Charlotte? Look, I mean, that game. I think Clemson and Georgia are playing each other in Charlotte. They should flip. They should flip those two games.
Yeah, make the phone calls, man.
I don't understand. Obviously, it's a quick trip either way for South Carolina fans, but for Virginia Tech fans from Richmond and Northern Virginia, the 757, it's a big difference between Charlotte and Atlanta.
Yeah.
You're talking about 1.5 whole states, basically. So 2 or 3 hours extra on the trip. So that game should be in Charlotte. I don't understand why it's in Atlanta. Because South Carolina has played North Carolina and Charlotte. They've played NC State and Charlotte. But now we have to go all the way to Atlanta to play them. I don't like that part of it. So, obviously, another one was Penn State, but that didn't happen.
I know.
Nor will it ever happen now, most likely.
Yeah, I think that's over.
Yeah, I think that's done and dusted, unfortunately.
Hey, there is Wisconsin, though, in 2035, 2036.
Well, it's
Andy Bitter is excited about that.
Oh, yeah. I think they've been trying to play that game for the last 10 or 15 years.
It's going to be pushed back to 2045.
We do have a future schedule page on TSL, and here I am using my phone now. Let's see. Let's take a look at future football schedules. Now we know, let's see, Tech has West Virginia the next couple of years. Oh, goodness. They've got Vanderbilt, as if anyone's really worried about that, but at least it's something different. They got BYU on here. They got Maryland on here. More Notre Dame. They've got Arizona, Wisconsin, Ole Miss.
That's right. Forgot about Ole Miss. That's 2035, right?
Alabama.
These games are way out there now.
Remember mark your calendars for September 2nd, 2034 and September 1st, 2035 at home and home with the Crimson Tide.
You know I'm going to be 69 years old for the first one of those and 70 for the second one.
I don't even want to do that math myself.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's easy math. I was born in 1964, so
right.
2034 and 2035, it's easy.
So, there's a few on there. But, it's I don't know what's going to happen in college football with regards to scheduling in the future. Like, I'm not at all convinced that long term that 130 teams will stay in one division. I'm not even convinced that long term 60 teams will
stay. Look what this question has turned into.
I'm not even convinced that long term that 60 teams will stay in the same division. So that's a whole different topic, though.
Well, one question that we always get on every episode of the Tech Sideline podcast is what's coming up on TechSideline.com this week. For those that are looking for content, what do we have coming up this week? Our managing editor.
We've got a Brandon Patterson article. We got a Jack Tyler article from Corey Van Dyke. I should be able to get my an offensive line PFF article out.
I miss PFF. It's been a while since we talked PFF on the podcast.
Basketball article at some point. Friday Q&A. Jason Stame. There's a lot of stuff.
So give me a second, Kerry, because we got an email this morning from from Pete Morris. I've got lots of emails this morning. Where's my Pete Morris email? Okay, so Tuesday, March 2nd, so this will be part of the content this week. They're going to do interviews with Adam Lichtenberg, Ryan Smith. That'll be a good one. Looking forward to that. No offense to Adam Lichtenberg, but Luke Tenuta, Tavion Robinson, and Narelle Pollard.
Wow.
Is Narelle Pollard a good interview? Any idea?
I expect he is.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember. I'm not I think I've been in the same room. Yeah, he was a sophomore. I've been in the same room with him at some point.
Yeah. So that's going to be on Tuesday at about 11:30 in the morning. So that's content that'll be coming up this week also.
$84.99 is the annual price, $849 the monthly price, $29.99 the student price. Subscribe to TSL today. Become a part of the TechSideline.com family. All right, well, busy week ahead. Final week of the regular season for ACC men's basketball. Virginia Tech with 2 big games.
So the women's ACC tournament starts Thursday?
Thursday at 6 o'clock on RSN against Miami.
Okay.
And then if they win, they will get NC State.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on. You can follow us on Twitter at Tech Sideline. We'll keep you up to date with everything going on in Virginia Tech athletics. Will's on Twitter at Will Stewart TSL. Give him a follow. Chris Coleman's on Twitter at Chris Coleman TSL. And if you're watching on YouTube here towards the end, please
subscribe and like.
Thank you all. Well, that'll wrap things up. Any closing thoughts, gentlemen, here? Our first podcast of March.
No, just that was a really busy weekend.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we got through it all, and we'll get through it again next Monday. Hope you can join us then for another show. That'll wrap things up for our managing editor, Chris Coleman, for our founder and general manager, Will Stewart, the best podcast producer than Malcolm Stewart. I'm your podcast host, Evan Hughes, saying so long. Thanks so much for watching and listening to episode 169 of the Tech Sideline podcast, presented by Anytime Fitness, Campus Emporium, and the Southeast Regional Training Center. Have a great week, Hokies, and we'll talk to you next Monday.